This is The Last Laugh. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and I am so excited to have as my guest on this week's show a hilarious and talented actress you probably know as Tahani from The Good Place. Her new podcast, which I have been loving, by the way, is called Wrong Turns. Jameela Jamil, welcome to The Last Laugh.
Hello, how are you?
So good to have you here.
Very good to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I feel like you've been on this sort of big press tour for the Pixar movie, Elio, and your new podcast. So how are you holding up?
Good, really good. I only take work I love, and so I'm always really happy to talk about it. I sometimes turn down better opportunities in life because I know it's going to be a fucking miserable experience that I will hate talking about. And I hate all the people involved.
Just because of the press, you're dreading the part where you have to talk about it in the press?
No, I'm dreading having to pretend I liked the people I worked with. So I only work with people that I like.
That's a good plan. Well, Pixar is a pretty good group to work with.
Yeah, and also the cast are just amazing, and the writing team, the animators, everyone's wonderful. It's everything you dreamed of more. I found these photographs of me from my early 20s, like 23 years old, running around as a visitor at Pixar Studios in Northern California. And, you know, looking at all the sketches and saying the way that anyone does. You know, I'd only been an English teacher just like a year before that. And the way anyone would be like, oh, God, I'd love to be in a Pixar movie one day. And I think I must have just sent that out into the universe. I'm not a big manifesty person. I don't love all that. But I must have put it into, I don't know, written it into my story, because then it happened 17 years later. A mere 17 years, hop and a skip later.
Well, a lot happened in between those times. And I want to start by talking about your new podcast, Wrong Turns. As I said, I'm really enjoying it. You've had some very funny people on it, including a lot of guests we've had on this show. Mae Martin, Jake Johnson, Beth Stelling, Jillian Bell, just really, really funny people. And the show is really about embarrassment and failure and all of these things. So how did you decide that that's what you wanted to make a show about?
I just wanted to make something that wasn't therapeutic. I wanted to make something that wasn't inspiring. You know, I'm counterculture. I'm sick of the inspiration being shoved down our throats. And so I wanted to make something that was anti-inspiration, pro-commiseration. Right now, we need to hear that other people have it worse. We need to feel less alone in our shame and our mortification. And so I get my favorite funny people to come on and tell me their most humiliating stories that had no great silver lining. There's no reassuring ending. There's no great wisdom gained. Sometimes when life gives you lemons, you just shit your pants. And that is the truth.
Do you feel like there was a part of your career, what you were doing, that was more focused on inspiration? Did you used to feel like that was something that you had to do or wanted to do, or you were part of that?
I think I wanted to, and I think that was a time where there was still hope left in the world, and I think we've turned a sharp corner towards a dumpster fire that is a flame, and no one knows how to put it out. So I was like, maybe I'm the violinist just playing people out on the Titanic, and one thing I can do is give them 35 minutes of filthy respite, a show that you can't listen to with your children. Like, you have to take time alone to yourself. Yes. And listen to it and have, you know, people have had like accidents listening to it on the treadmill because they're laughing. Like, it's a very indulgent 30-minute raucous show of inappropriateness. And I think that's what many of us are craving. You know, we've all been very well behaved, and it's time to cut it out.
Well, you're very good at getting these stories out of your guests. And, you know, I'm asking for no particular reason, not because I'm trying to get embarrassing stories out of my guests or anything, but do you have a secret to getting people to tell you their most humiliating stories?
I blackmail them with nudes I take of them outside their bedroom.
That's a good strategy.
I learned that from Rupert Murdoch. I think because I'm so forthcoming with my embarrassing stories, that almost every episode is peppered with something really humiliating that I always regret having said afterwards. But because I'm right in there with you, I don't think anyone feels overly exposed. And I'm never, you know, we don't punch up, we don't punch down, we don't even punch across, we just punch ourselves together. You know, in a punching circle. And so I don't know what it is, but I think it's mostly the fact that I'm willing to get down in the dirt and humiliate myself first.
I feel like you said somewhere that you have less shame now than you used to. But do you feel like there's a level of shame that's necessary? I mean, I think about, somebody like, Donald Trump is someone who is notoriously shameless, and that's sort of a default. So is there like a balance? Is there a level of shame that you need, or is it better to be totally shameless, or how do you think about that?
No, I think that when my tagline of my last podcast was, this is a podcast that is against shame, and I was wrong. And I'd like to offer a mea culpa for that, because we all got it. It was shameless, and it caught on, and then it became our identity. And then we all became bastards. So on the left and the right, people started behaving very inappropriately and very shamefully. And so I do think a spoonful of shame every morning is very important. Just enough to check yourself with. I think a little healthy dose of it, but I think it should never be something that then corrupts your entire life. I have less shame about the things that are pointless for me to feel shame about. Because women in particular, but I think everyone is, made to feel ashamed of so much about ourselves. And I don't carry those, but I've willfully hung on to things that I should feel a little bit fucking ashamed of, frankly.
What's the difference between something that you should and shouldn't feel ashamed about?
Well, I think when someone profits from your shame, you shouldn't feel fucking ashamed of yourself. I think when you've been manipulated into feeling ashamed of something that you had nothing to do with, for example, a beauty standard that has been set by men who want to have sex with teenagers, grown adult men who want to have sex with teenagers have set a beauty standard that now grown women are having to pander to, and then they feel ashamed of themselves if they don't meet the beauty standard of a prepubescent child, or barely post-pubescent child. I'm not going to feel ashamed about not succumbing to a pedophile's beauty standard, but I will feel ashamed of some of the ways I've behaved publicly on the internet.
For example?
For example, just my general kind of, bullshit, classic, liberal, you do this and you do that, and labeling people and being quite unforgiving in my manner. And I wasn't pro-cancel culture. I didn't consider I was cancelling them. I didn't want them to lose their jobs or anything. I was just trying to say, cut it out. But I was speaking from the wound, not from the scar. And so I said it in ways that were actually just more alienating. It was completely counterproductive. And then I got super celebrated for that. I got named one of Time Magazine's 25 most influential people alongside Donald Trump. I was on the cover of Vogue 5 times. I was called the feminist hero we need. And so young people looked at that and thought, oh, that's the correct way to behave. And I don't stand by that. So now anywhere I can, I remind people that I was a stupid bitch. And there is a better, kinder way to communicate. And actually, humour, as The Good Place demonstrates, is the fastest and most lasting, effective way to infiltrate people with something good. And I think part of Wrong Turns is also about the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. Ultimately it's saying we're not alone. We are all very vulnerable, fallible, ridiculous people. And we should just marinate in that for a while rather than trying to shake it off and hide it and create this kind of show reel of perfection for online, which just makes us boring to have dinner with.
I do want to talk about The Good Place, because I feel like your story of how you got on that show, your audition, and just how it all worked out is sort of the opposite of this kind of failure that you talk about on the show. It was this very impressive thing that you pulled off. You had not really done any acting before being on that show. Can you tell the story of how you made it into one of the main roles on this, network sitcom?
Yeah, I was sitting at UTA, my agency, and I was telling them that I didn't want to be on television anymore and that I'd done it throughout my 20s and I was done and I wanted to be a writer and a DJ now. And they were all arguing with me, and I was sitting in the Goldfish Bowl room at UTA. And then you can see out and everyone can see in, and you can also see the front door. And in walks this woman, and I think to myself while I'm talking, God, that looks exactly like the girl that bullied me really badly at school. But why would she be on the other side of the world at the same time as me, in the same place, at the same agency? Is she even in this industry? No, ridiculous. And then she sees me, stops walking, and raises her hand and waves, at which point I realize, oh my God, this is my high school bully, who I haven't seen in almost 15 years. So I jump under the table, I hide. My agents start panicking as to thinking I'm having some sort of manic episode. I finally emerge and I tell them all what she did and who she is. And they were like, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to get her kicked out of here? Or, I was like, no, you can't interfere with someone else's life. It's bad karma. I think it would be really helpful if you could just give me a round of applause. And so I asked them to give me a round of applause. They gave me a standing ovation, and I'm there being theatrical, like, oh no, stop it, sit down, sit down. Literally, I have no money, no contacts, no visa, like no job, and I'm there, being congratulated by everyone. And I was like, this is amazing. All right, I'm gonna leave and call you from the car park. Now, during that meeting, they'd been trying to convince me to go for this one audition at the Good Place, and I'd never acted before, so I was saying no because I don't think I have a right, because I'm not an actor. So I walk out of that room past my school bully. I don't look at her. I don't acknowledge her. And as I'm leaving, I hear one of my agents go, congratulations on your nomination. I literally have nothing. And I was so moved by that moment that I called them from the car park and I was like, whatever this audition is, I'll go. Thank you so much for doing me such a solid. Like, you healed my inner child. I'll do anything. I went to the audition. It was the Good Place. It was a disastrous audition. Yeah. But Mike Schur saw something in me and gave me the role of Tahani.
Were you auditioning for Tahani? Because Tahani feels like a part that was written for you. It feels so you now, but it wasn't, right?
No, and she's nothing like me, but he let me create her with the writers. Her name was Tess, and she was annoying and sort of very unself-aware. But I said to Mike when I got there, I was like, this woman's very nice, and so she can't be English. You have this romanticized idea of what English people are like. There was no passive aggression in Tahani. She was a woman called Tess before. And I was like, let's make her a real Londoner. Let's make her passive aggressive. Let's make her vain. Let's make her quietly aware. And rude, a little rude. And so he always said to me, he was like, do it one way your way and one way my way. And then I didn't know until the show came out which way he chose. And he chose my interpretation of Tahani because he's a legend and isn't an arrogant monster. And he obviously wrote that part. The writers wrote that part. I'm not trying to take credit for what they created, but they let me teach them about how vile British people really are. And I'm very proud.
Were you basing it on people from your life or people that you...
Literally my roommate, who now isn't speaking to me.
because you revealed that this character was based on your roommate?
Yeah, I never said it was her publicly, but I said it was someone I know. I think I might have said someone I used to live with. But I think it was also unmistakably her. I don't even know if I'm a good actor. I might just be a good mimic. But I stole so much of her personality and put it into this role, even the accent.
You've said that, it wasn't imposter syndrome as much as being an actual imposter.
A literal imposter, yeah.
Because you had not acted before. You kind of implied that you had or had some improv background, or...
No, I said that I'd worked on the stage in England because it's harder to do. But actually I'd just been on a technical stage in London. It was just my primary school. I was tree number 3 in Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So
a lot of people cast in their first real acting role on a big show like this would feel some imposter syndrome. Did you feel that? Were you nervous once you did get the part and knew that you were going to do it, or did you were confident you knew you could do this?
No, because again, imposter syndrome is more when you are somewhere that you've earned your way to be, but you're still convinced that you don't belong there and you haven't earned it and someone's made a mistake. I literally didn't belong there and I didn't deserve it, and Mike Schur did make a mistake. So it's very different. So I just felt like I'd crashed a wedding. And I talk about this a lot, that I treat my life as though it's a wedding I've crashed, and I'm going to get in and have as much fun and dance as much as I can and steal some cake and kiss someone and then get thrown out. And so I've spent the last 20 years of my life just waiting to get thrown out. And I will be at some point. But, until then, I'm going to just live it up. I think it's very... God, I'm going to be problematic. Sorry, it's coming.
Here we go.
The wave of problematic is coming up. I think there's something bullshit and egotistical about paying any attention to the hierarchy of this industry or any industry. There's no such thing as people who belong. And I've met most of the most, famous or decorated people in the world. And a lot of them are quite mediocre in person. And a lot of the work that they've done that they're great in is also the result of 200 other people's work that feeds into it. So I think we over-congratulate, in particular, celebrities, but the people at the top, and we don't realise that they are a product of hundreds of people's work. Even the CEO billionaire who built the company by themselves, like, yeah, off the exploited labour of fucking hundreds of people, thousands of people. So, I don't know. I think it's silly to think you ever belong anywhere or in any room. I think it's navel gazing and self-obsessive to just be like, oh, am I allowed to be in here? Just little old me. It's like, shut up. No one deserves to be in that room. It's a bunch of overpaid assholes and narcissists who are quite good sometimes.
What was your experience doing maybe your first day on set, acting with people like Ted Danson, Kristen Bell, who have been, paying their dues and been around for a long time, and you're in scenes with them. And what was that like for you?
It was great. I mean, it was terrifying. I was terrified of Kristen Bell because she is so intimidating, and she's just very on it, very precise, an exceptional actor, who will have like 2 babies like in her arms and a script that she's only just seen because she was busy producing her other show in between the take, and she'll nail it every time. So I felt so exposed in front of her, whereas Ted, essentially, without saying this ever, was like, I can see you're a bullshitter, so I'm going to help you survive this.
Did he give you advice?
Yeah, he literally taught me. Everything I am, if you like me or hate me, it's because of Ted Danson. He taught me like how to understand where the cameras are and all the tech of being on set. And, he would encourage me to try new things, not sexually, sorry, my intrusive thoughts. He would encourage me to try new things and be more bold, and he built my confidence up from scratch. He also taught me how to dance like a lady. He like twirled me around like the old movies and taught me how to do like proper slow dancing, which I'd never done, because in England men just rub their penis against you and that means you're dancing.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a lot of thrusting, and Ted was a gentleman and taught me how to dance properly, and the fact that that's now immortalized on celluloid forever is like, I was so ready to retire after The Good Place. I was like, I never really had any ambition, but after that I was like, I literally can't ever top that. So I'm good.
Yeah, that's tough when you do something that's so great and so beloved.
But Ted was my good place.
Yeah.
He was my good place. Like, he was my heaven and my savior. And he would get this almond butter and peanut snack. Sorry, not almond butter. Almond butter and apple snack every day. And he would eat near me because he knew I would want some. And then he would share his daily snack with me every day. So that was really fun. Yeah, I have nothing but warm things to say about that experience.
Yeah, The Good Place, I mean, it's a very funny show. It's also this very deep philosophical show. I had Mike Schur on this podcast as well, talking a lot about that. Do you feel like the experience of doing that show made you think differently about the world, or about what happens after you die, or how to live your life, or any of that stuff? I mean, because it's so packed with, big ideas.
I think I live my life with more potency because of the show. I think I feel very cognizant of how important it is to make the most of your time here, gratitude, but also I think right now in this moment of political, socio-political, cultural hell that we're in, a show like The Good Place, it's interesting how anyone who stops me who's a fan of the show is always on their 5th or 7th rewatch, because they need it during this time. We ended in 2020 just as the world was collapsing and we had no idea what was about to happen. And the show reminds you, ultimately at its core, that people with huge differences from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ideologies, can put their differences aside if they have a main objective to all get to a better place. That is the fundamental thread of The Good Place. And if ever we need that information, it's now. All the infighting on the left, all the fighting between the right and the left, like the independents, like all, the centres, like everyone is fighting. Everyone's become so obsessed with looking for our differences with one another. And so we fail to recognise that actually we have far more in common with everyone, even people who we are so politically opposed to. Ultimately, we all want good healthcare, safety, happiness, love, community. And we all have those shared dreams, and the same people are taking that away from all of us, whether you like those people at the top or not, or voted for them or not. So if we would come together it benefits the people at the top if we keep fighting at each other and pointing at each other. If we work together, we could then all collectively point up top at the people who are destroying our society, and then we would be able to take them down. But they keep us distracted, and we are drunk on moral superiority. And so The Good Place reminds you that you have far more in common with even the most unlikely people. You've got Eleanor, definitely a Republican, and then Tahani, a performative liberal Democrat, right? These two people, different cultures. Tahani's from Pakistan, Eleanor's from, the Midwest, Arizona, I think. And so you put these two people who are chalk and cheese, but ultimately when they want the same thing, they figure it out and they make it to a better place. And Christ, do we need that message now? The Good Place was 4 years too early.
Yeah, if it was on now, you think it would help things?
Yes, I do. I genuinely do. I genuinely think it would, because it's the truth wrapped in dick jokes and fart jokes.
So I want to peel back the curtain a little bit, and I've been talking to your team about doing this interview for a while now. We were going to do it, a few weeks ago. That was before you posted a Substack that got quite a lot of attention about being done getting interviewed by female journalists. In print. I felt like I was still safe either way because not a woman. But that piece obviously caused quite a stir. So I wanted to ask you about it and sort of why you decided to write that, what prompted it, and how you have felt about the reaction.
Oh gosh, I haven't spoken about this yet. I had a really lovely interview with this woman at the Sunday Times, and she was very charming, and we had such a great chat, and we covered all these really interesting subjects. And I'm very intentional and thoughtful with my interviews, where I'm thinking of the audience and what would be helpful or contemplative for them to hear, something that would be thought-provoking or supportive. And so we talked about so many interesting things, and she just threw away most of the interview and wrote essentially a character assassination of me, and included, I've been in this industry almost 2 decades, like every minor incident or illness or accident or discrepancy in my, like some mistake or conspiracy about me. And it was like a Regina George burn book entry. And I'd rather she just wrote a piece called I fucking hate Jameela Jamil. That would have more integrity, because I don't mind.
Without interviewing you.
I hate people all the time. That's life. But putting me through the interview, throwing away stuff, twisting my words, taking things I say strategically out of context to confirm her confirmation bias about me, to fit the narrative she walked into that room with, having never met me. And I thought to myself, how am I still doing print interviews with people? How am I still agreeing to let someone else interpret my words, my character, my being? How is this still a game that I'm willing to play when everyone has fucked me over in all but 4 interviews I've done in 17 years? I've done hundreds of interviews, and I've been misrepresented, misquoted, maligned, humiliated. And, they're going out to audiences who don't know me, who that'll be their first introduction to me. And it's so manipulative. And this woman was using words that a man journalist could never get away with. She, at one point she asked me a very provocative, inappropriate question. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't really want to answer that. I don't believe in oxygenating foolishness. And I smiled at her, and then my publicist tried to end the interview there, and I said, no, it's fine, we can keep going. And she refers to that as my claws retracting. If a man wrote about a woman and her claws, especially when she's politely drawing a boundary, there'd be 100 think pieces about him in the morning. There'd be a call for him to be removed from his position at that newspaper. But when it's a woman perpetuating misogyny, we have this weird, room for doubt that we give her. And we don't see it as misogyny because we kind of know internalized misogyny exists, but we don't really understand it. And ultimately, men used to do this to me, maybe not to me. Men used to do this to women 20 years ago. But then feminism happened on a higher scale in this industry, and men stopped being allowed to do this to women, even gay men. And so then women were sent in to do the bidding and the dirty work of the patriarchy. So women get away with it. They get more access to me, and they don't get criticized in the same way. And I'm a real feminist. A feminist means equality. Feminist means equality when you get paid, socio-political, all kinds of equality. It also means if you hurt a woman, you deserve to be dragged by your fucking pubes for it. And so I don't think that you get a special pass for hurting another woman just because you're a woman. I believe in equality, which is no one hurts anyone without getting called out.
Yeah, and you feel like it went beyond this one interviewer.
Yeah, and so, well, exactly. It was hundreds of interviews, and my heart breaking again and again and again because I had so much faith in these women. And so what I realized is, and I think this is really important because this is not just happening to me, right? And by the way, when the piece went viral, so many of the most famous women of all time reached out to me privately to say thank you for saying something.
Not publicly.
No, of course not. Because they don't want to be dragged into this, but they reached out to me to say it had echoed their experience, and that made me really sad. But the most potent and important part of what I wrote in this piece is the fact that why, when I'm speaking about socio-political issues, does my character have to be pleasing to you when I'm not talking about myself? It doesn't matter whether you like or find me annoying, or if you like me or don't like me, or if you believe me or not. I'm talking about statistics, right? Factual, proven statistics that have nothing to do with me. It doesn't matter if you find me annoying or not to believe what I'm saying about trans rights or about men's violence against women. All these objective truths that I lay out with my platform. How weird that you need to find me palatable to digest the objective truth I'm signaling to. It's a way of destabilizing the conversation, right? Is she too thin to talk about fat phobia? Is she too well to talk about disability? Is she too rich to talk about austerity? What a clever way to destabilize the conversation from ever actually having its moment. And I think it's disgusting that the call is coming from inside the house, and I just fucking refuse, and I felt like fighting back, and hell hath no fury, like an actress who used to be a journalist scorned.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction was pretty intense. You talked about feeling like you were held up as a feminist hero in the past. Now there were articles, I think, specifically one in The Cut that basically said called you anti-feminist for having this take.
I mean, did you read that piece of shit she wrote? Like, it felt like a satire.
I did, yeah.
It was. Did you think it was well written?
I don't really have an opinion on whether it was well written. I think that I could see why it frustrated you, and I think that it was, particularly harsh.
It didn't just frustrate me. It read like satire.
Yeah, there was a humorous sort of, yeah.
It read like satire, not just to me, but if you read the comment section of their own audience,
yeah,
it reads a satire. It looks like she's going out of her way to prove my point. When I first read it, I liked it, thinking this is very well done satire. And then towards the end understood, oh no, this is a desperate plea to cover up your own shame for participating because you need a job, because you want to climb the ranks in journalism. And the fact of the matter is, I'm 40. I don't need to please a man. I don't have a job that has a man at the top. I work for myself. I'm financially stable. I'm very lucky to get to do my dream and not have to succumb to the whims of vile patriarchy. If you do, that's on you. And how much you choose to perpetuate misogyny for profit is something you have to live with. And you can't just shut me up, because what I'm saying is true. And the reason we know that is because hundreds of thousands of women agreed with me publicly in the comments, in the likes, all over social media. It resonated not just with other actresses, but with women who feel as though they've been taken down by other women in their industries and in their schools. And so it was an important conversation, and The Cut were the only people who came after me after that. Everyone else left me alone, and so many journalists reached out to me privately to say, oh my God, you would not believe what it's like working at these places. We're forced to twist things and create narratives and go after women.
Yeah. Ask specific questions or, yeah.
And so therefore I feel so sorry for them, and I feel so sorry for women who are in this position, but also it's a fucking choice. There are many decisions I could have made that could have hurt women. I could have sold diet products, I could have sold toxicity, I could have done all these things for profit. I've lost out on millions from choosing to back women and not hurt women. And so you can't project your own self-disgust onto me, which is what I believe that journalist did. And I think it was a shame because there were so many important conversations about violence against women and all these different things that we could have had during that would have been so much more nourishing for the reader, rather than this very indulgent, random takedown piece, which again, write the piece, say how much you hate me, that's fine, but own it as that. Don't pretend, don't justify it by using my time and my thoughts. Just grow up.
Yeah. Since that piece came out in the Times of London, I think you have more interviews with you by female writers have come out. I don't know if they were done before. Have you reconsidered your thoughts about that, stopping, or you're standing by that idea that you're not going to do anymore?
I'd done them before I wrote the piece, and they were published a week and a half or a week after.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
And they were surprisingly and refreshingly fair. They weren't asking, they were just fair. And I was like, oh, I wonder if a second thought was given.
Yeah, a second read.
And I think what I said ultimately did somewhat resonate with some journalists who did reach out to me and say it had. And so if I might have pissed off the media with what I did, but also massively, who cares? There's much more important shit going on in the world than me and my career. But if I've influenced women who work in these spaces to write something that's so good that it will travel because you're so talented, rather than you did the salacious old trope of taking down a woman for no reason, especially a woman who's doing what? Trying to fight for women and children and disabled people, and that's your big target? Because I'm annoying or I said something the wrong way, like that's who you're going to direct your energy towards? What about the predators in the world and all the people doing bad? I find it very cringe, and I hope that I can inspire young women writers to uplift other women. And you don't have to like I said, you don't have to suck our dicks. You just have to at least be fair and have some integrity. But I don't know, I don't have a lot of thoughts about it.
No, not too many thoughts. In the bigger picture, what do you feel like have been the biggest misconceptions about you publicly that you would like to correct, or what do you want people to know about you that maybe they assume otherwise?
I don't know, man. I don't really give a fuck what people think about me. I think I'll always find it amusing that people think that I do all of this for attention for myself or for profit, when it's mostly negative attention you get when you go against the system, right? When you're a subversive person, when you criticize people with a lot of money or systems with a lot of money, you get punished in ways that I don't publicize because I don't want to discourage anyone else. You also lose out on an insane amount of jobs and profit when you prove yourself to be someone who'll fight back. And so that is something that I find sad and amusing. And I think that is a lie sold by powerful people who want to plant seeds of doubt in the public about those who are trying to make the world slightly less disgusting. And so that'll always confuse me and baffle me, but I know what I'm doing is right. I know I'm on the right side here. And, it's a bit like with Jane Fonda, who I'm not saying I'm as great as, but Jane Fonda during the years of her most hardcore activism was hugely disliked, disagreed with, torn apart, character assassinations left, right and center. And later we were able to look back at her body of work in advocacy and go, oh wow, she really stuck to that. And we know she was the real deal, and people understand her now. And so maybe one day people will understand me, but if they don't, fuck it, who cares? I'll be dead. At least I lived my life with integrity.
Yeah. You described yourself as not very ambitious, but I did want to ask sort of about this coming decade. You're turning 40 this coming year, I believe. What are your ambitions for the next 10 years of your life? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve?
I really have no idea. I never had a plan. I was an English teacher who got street scouted and landed on television and then radio and then became a writer and then became an actor and then started hosting game shows. And then now as a podcaster, I don't know. I don't have a plan. I think the magic of my life and my career has been the fact that I stay open to the periphery because I'm damn near excited to fail. I refer to myself as a failure pervert. I'm very open to embarrassing myself and for getting messy, because in the end we don't remember the messy part. We just remember the adventures. And I think all the time about my 85-year-old self. We're always encouraged to think about our inner child. I don't give a shit anymore about my inner child. My 20-something-year-old self has lost favor with me because she destroyed my health with my eating disorder. So I feel empathy for her, but I don't want to think about her anymore. I'm very angry with her. My 85-year-old self, I constantly think about what she will think of me and all the decisions I make now. So every job I take, every script I agree to, every adventure I agree to, every meal I eat, every holiday I go on, everything is designed to please my 85-year-old self. I want to give her a body of memories. And so the work I do going forward, I'm doing more writing. Substack is a great release for me as I ramp up to my first book. And I'm writing a script, 2 scripts at the moment, and I wonder if they'll ever be seen by people on screen. I have no idea, but I'm very willing to try. And then I guess I'm just going to hopefully continue to work with people that I love and have fun with. And I hope I have fun in the next 10 years. I'm really not interested in accolades and, public favor. I'm really interested in the experiences. And so if I'm lucky enough to get to work with more of these people that I love working with, the Lisa Kudrows of this world, the Mark Ruffalos, etc., the Ted Dansons, then life is cake. I'm so lucky to have done what I've done already. And if nothing ever comes again, I'm so thrilled with my lot. I achieved so much more than I thought I would. I got away with a lot. So my next 10 years will just be about fun.
So now it's time for our segment called The First Laugh. So I'm going to ask you a series of shorter questions, starting with the first piece of comedy that you remember making you laugh really hard as a kid growing up.
Beverly Hills Cop. I was 2.
That's quite young.
A little young. So I was like, hey, motherfucker, when I was 3. The foulest language.
Precocious, yeah.
My first word was fuck. Because obviously I'd heard Eddie Murphy say it every 5 seconds. And then my dad said it once in the car. And I was like, I'm ready. And so I said it in the car. And then my brother's 9 years older than me. So he wasn't allowed to say it, but he knew what it was. So he was like, say it again. And I was like, fuck. So appalling language, but Beverly Hills Cop fully informed my sense of humor. And then Neil Simon massively informed, after that it was Barefoot in the Park and all these different amazing Neil Simon comedies, and then Nora Ephron and then Richard Curtis. And so but Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy was my Eddie Murphy and then Whoopi Goldberg were 2 of my first entries into comedy.
What about the first time that you knew that you were funny, that you could make other people laugh?
Oh, God. I don't know if I considered it funny at the time, but I knew, I come from a very sad family, like people who have very, very dark mental illness and trauma. And I was able to entertain them. And that was the only time I would see them be happy. And so I knew I had the skill to entertain people. Whether or not that means I'm funny, I don't know. But I'm definitely entertaining. Because even if you hate me and you hate watch what I'm doing, I'm still technically entertaining you. So I think I learned very young that I have the skill to entertain people who are sad. And I think that's kind of what I've wanted to do for the rest of my life, is make sad people feel happy for a bit.
Did you ever try stand-up at any point early on, or
Once. One time at Largo for charity, and it went really well, and then I was like, that was fucking beginner's luck. I'm never doing that again.
No?
I'm going to just immortalize that. Like, I'm going to seal that in a vault of going well one time, and then that's it. Now I'm a successful stand-up, and no one can take that away from me. And I'm leaving that alone, and I'm never doing it ever again. But it was incredibly fun, absolutely terrifying. They are stand-up comics are on the front line of this industry. It's the hardest. It's by a mile the hardest job. I'm completely in awe.
Well, yeah, I feel like the stories that you're telling on your podcast could be stand-up stories. I mean, you're very close to doing it now.
Oh God, no, it's very humiliating. The podcast, I think my publicist is going to have a nervous breakdown.
All the stories you're sharing?
Every week, it's just, she's learning all this stuff about me publicly with the rest of the world. But it feels very liberating to just tell people that I'm a piece of shit. And have that, live forever in perpetuity. And it's on my terms, and I'm making the podcast independently, and so it's like no one can tell me what to do, and that feels really fun and terrifying.
When you look back at the last 20 years, is there anything you said no to that now you kind of think, ooh, maybe I should have said yes to that one?
No, I said yes to
regrets.
pretty much everything apart from anal. So
Well, my next question is there anything you said yes to that you wish you'd said no to?
No. Anything I said yes to that I wish I'd said no to? Yeah, so many fucking interviews in print.
There you go. Hopefully
The
not
only
this one.
stressor of my life. That's it. But other than that, no. It was continuing to give print journalists a chance. No. And you asked earlier if I changed my mind on that. I think no. I think I'm going to stick to my guns for my own sanity. And from now on, if I work with magazines, if they want to work with me, I'll just write my own piece, or I'll do a written interview where they can't take my words out of. But I'm done with being... It's a ridiculous thing to agree to. It's a ridiculous concept that someone frames your entire being, and they can add all kinds of little shit that changes the entire context or substance of what you're saying. I don't know why we have to dance in this little puppet game. I refuse to be a puppet any longer. So I think no, respectfully.
I try not to pull too many things out of Wikipedia because you never know what's true and what's not. But I just have to know, is it true?
It's edited by my school body.
Is it true that you officiated Larry David's wedding?
Is that in my fucking Wikipedia?
I think so. It's somewhere. Is that true?
God! That's so embarrassing, but yes, I did, and that's mortifying. I'm going to get that taken out of my Wikipedia. That's so disrespectful. Yes, I officiated Larry David's wedding, and I would like to be very minimal in how much I talk about that, but he's a friend of mine. I met him because I was at a dinner, and I genuinely thought he was a Bernie Sanders impersonator, because I hadn't seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I didn't know he wrote Seinfeld, and I hadn't seen Seinfeld. So at the time, we had a 1-hour conversation
without you knowing anything about who he was.
Me asking him about his career. And not understanding who he was.
I wonder if that's what endeared you to him, that you didn't know who he was, because everyone else.
Well, I would have been too intimidated to speak to him. That's how I behaved with Jim Carrey. I was just like a complete mute. With many people that I admire. So I'm so glad that I saw Curb like 2 years after becoming friends with him, and then sort of struggled with the feeling of like, oh no, what happens when you become in awe of someone who's already your friend? But yeah, he's great, and that's all I'll probably say about that, if that's all right.
Fair enough. I just had to know if that was true.
It is true.
The next question is, do you have a story about the first time you met one of your really big comedy heroes? So I guess Larry David would not count, because at that time he was not a comedy hero.
No, I thought he was an amazing Bernie Sanders. Because he'd been on SNL, he'd gone viral that week.
Yeah.
He's like, I only have 3
So you're like, he's just this guy who plays Bernie on SNL, yeah. You had no idea about the rest,
No. So what was the question again?
The first time you met someone who was a really big comedy hero for you, and what it was like to meet them for the first time.
Obviously there's Ted, but I'm sure I must have met someone before him who was my comedy hero in particular. I lost my mind meeting Whoopi Goldberg. I really, to the point where Joy wanted to, on The View, asked if I wanted to swap seats with her so I could sit closer to Whoopi. And I said yes, and then just sat there blushing at her for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think she's so known now for The View that people forget what a complete trailblazer she was for comedy, for women of color. She transcended her own race or personality or anything to become one of the most beloved comedians, respected by all other comedians. Jumping Jack Flash, like all of her, the Ghost, like all these fucking phenomenal contributions towards comedy, and then goes and pulls off The Color Purple. Like what a once in a generational gift she was to society. And I was born in the 80s, so she was all I had to look up to that wasn't a very skinny white woman. And there weren't many women front and center in comedy, and there weren't women hosting the Oscars. And she means so much to me. And, she had to take on so much like vile racism in the media, and she just never let it become a thing, never let it become part of her identity or her story. She to me is a national treasure, an international treasure. And so meeting her, and you can see it on YouTube. I behave like a fucking 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, it was
I
you had
lost
trouble
it.
keeping it together sitting next to her?
Not that, but also I had a picture that we'd brought with of me 10 years earlier kissing her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Do you know how filthy that road is?
That's disgusting.
Like, no wonder I'm sick now. Like, I've probably got an autoimmune disease from kissing that filthy fucking floor. But like, I'm spooning her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like, I'm a proper fan of everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not like cool and like, these are my people, these are my peers, when I go to the Golden Globes. Like, no, I have my phone in my hand, ready to take selfies. I'm a fucking liability. Right, my publicist on my first big photo shoot, which was like with Rose Byrne and Alfred Molina and all these different like great, Academy Award-winning actors and stuff, she was like, "Can you stop pointing at people and fucking close your mouth? Because I'm such a competition winner." So you can watch me fan out and lose my mind meeting Whoopi Goldberg for the first time.
The last question we ask on the show, and this is very in line with your podcast as well. Is there a story or memory from your career that makes you laugh now, but really was not funny when it happened?
Yep, 100%. I was at the like AFI Awards, and they're super prestigious, and everyone in the room is a fucking megastar, and you've got everyone there, and I can't believe I'm in this room and that I'm a nominee. And I see this very famous, like one of the most famous directors of all time there. Now, when I worked in a video store for 4 years when I was a teenager, he used to come in for like a whole summer all the time because he was living there filming a movie in London. And he would be really nice to me, even though he was this great icon. And we would have loads of chats about movies, and he would stay for like, an hour sometimes chatting to me in the video store. I'm just a kid, and he's just like, we're talking about our favorite movies and what they mean to us. And so he sees me in the room, and his face changes, and he goes, "Oh my God, hi." And I think, no way does he remember me from 20 years ago. Oh my God, I must have made such an impact. So I go like fucking bounding over to him, and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" Thinking like, look at me, look how well this guy did. And then he asks me about how Quantico's going, which is Priyanka Chopra, a whole other Indian show. And now I'm stuck with him, and I don't want to make it weird. I don't think he's being racist. Mm-hmm. He's confused us. He's a little older. Yeah. And I panic, and I do an Indian accent, and I pretend to be Priyanka Chopra. And I'm like, yeah, I was struggling with the stunts at first, but I'm really getting into it and loving my time in California. And I impersonate her for like 5 minutes, which is a felony, and then walk away feeling so gutted and embarrassed and like sorry to Priyanka Chopra. So at the time, I hated myself and hated that moment. And that's probably the only time I'll ever speak to him. But now I look back on it with a fonder lens.
And you don't want to say who it is, I assume?
I think it's better for him that I don't.
And have you met Priyanka Chopra since then, and does she know about this story?
I have met her. I have not brought up this story. I'm not to be bringing up this story. I only met her one time for 1 second. She lives in a different stratosphere to me. Yeah. She's like royalty. So I'm just a schmuck on on the street.
Who impersonated her one time?
Yeah, who did a felony, like who committed fraud one time.
Well, that is a very good story, as are many of the stories on your podcast as well. So I highly recommend everyone check that out. And Jameela, thank you so much for doing this. And it's been really great talking with you.
Thank you very much. It was really nice talking to you too.